for coming today. This is Rene Rubin, who is the Chief Deputy Clerk of the Gratiot County, and she's going to tell us about some of the items that are available for people who want to do research in Gratiot County. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. I am very honored to be here, so thank you so much. I do a lot of things at the courthouse. The county clerk's office is responsible for not only all the vital records, we also do felony court and family court. We register DD 214s, the military release papers. We do notary for assigning people to be a new notary, and we also notarize a lot of people's papers. And we do various other things, whatever people need us to do. So I love my job. I love working in that beautiful building every day. And if anybody is trying to research their family, I will do whatever I can to help them do that. If people come in, they can look at the books that we have in the vault. A lot of people who are doing genealogy are maybe not available to come into the building. They live farther away, or it just isn't something that they have the time to do it. At this point, we are trying to keep people to a minimum still in the building, but they can come in. Doing genealogy at our counter takes up a lot of room, so we have on our website that it's best for them to do it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or something. But if people come in at any other time, we certainly will let them look at the books. What I noticed is a lot of the time when people start looking at the books, they see people in their family that they didn't know they were looking for. And that's always interesting. One of the things that I got caught up in genealogy, I do death certificates also. And on a death certificate, one of the people who died, the mother, was a name that I recognized that is in my family. So I did some research back and forth and found out that she was my great-grandpa's sister. So it was interesting because the name, I thought it was, my aunt's name is the same, but she apparently named his child after his sister. So it was an interesting thing, and people do find things like that all the time. The more pieces of the puzzle that you find, the more you want to find, and the more it kind of spreads out. And the next thing you know, you're off on a whole other track. So it's very interesting, and sometimes when people come in, I also mention to them that you may find something in your family that you really didn't want to find. There's skeletons in all of our closets. And so it isn't anything you can do anything about because it happened long before you were born, and so just embrace it and move on. So tonight, I just wanted to show how the genealogy works on our website. And I realize that these pages are too small to really see from back there, but I just hope that if people have some rough idea what they're looking for, that maybe they'll recognize the pages when they go into our website. And so when you go onto the gratiotmi.com website, it has lines across the top for law and order, justice, government, so on and so on. When you get to the county clerk's page, that's where you can get to the genealogy part, and probably that's what you're looking for. Sometimes people are looking for a birth certificate currently, and so it does have an application form on there. There's forms for all the other things that we do in there too. If people want to get married, there's an affidavit in there so that they know what that information they're looking for. There's information on there so they can apply for a birth certificate without actually coming into our office. A birth certificate is not a public record, so just anyone can't get those. The marriage and death certificates are public record, and those are available for anyone who wants to get it. Our records are $26. If you get additional at the same time, it's $12. So I often encourage people, if you think you'll ever need more than one, it's cheaper to buy them at the same time.
So that's in the same document?
The same document at the same time. Thank you. Yes, that's correct. So when people are coming in to get their brand new baby, we just need to verify their ID. We hand over the birth certificate and off they go. Sometimes people don't come in to get them until their child is getting into school. They don't need them for any reason. And they all of a sudden think, oh, we better get that. When they're doing, they are wishing for birth certificates for their parents, per se, the parent still has to have some type of an ID for us to help them. A lot of times people are trying to get their elderly parent into a nursing home, something like that. And so the main thing that I stress to them is even if your parents don't drive anymore, still get a state ID, because they still need that identification just to show, so that we know that we're getting it to the right person. If the person doesn't come in, we can mail them, we have to mail them to the address on the driver's license or state ID. So please update that, so wherever you do live, make sure that that's what the right address is. People can pay us with credit or debit card, so they really don't have to come into the office. A lot of the time when they call and they are within driving range, but it's kind of a struggle, they're happy to find out that they can just do it over the phone. And I do tell people all the time, if you move to Oklahoma, I wouldn't make you drive here. So you're still gonna be able to get it. Hopefully all of the other counties have some type of program set up so they also can get the birth certificates easily to the people that need them. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have the birth and death records for all of Gratiot County?
Yes.
So all of the cemeteries and da-da-da, right?
Yep, we also, on our website, also there's a cemetery listing. A lot of people are looking for who is the sexton for a specific cemetery, and that is also on our webpage. And so people can go in, they can call directly. A lot of the time, it's the township clerk, and sometimes one of the people who maintains the cemetery happens to be someone who has 3 or 4 cemeteries, because it's right in the same area. So if they call me, I'll be happy to look it up for them, but if you're on the website, you can certainly find it.
Okay.
And sometimes we can go into, if you're clicking on, you can go to find a grave, and if you put a person's name in, sometimes you can see the gravestone, and that sometimes is helpful too, so people do go in and out of that. A lot of the older things, like when people are doing genealogy, they're struggling with our web pages because they don't coincide with the way the index works. So I thought maybe I would go a little bit over that so that people who are looking for it, maybe it would ease some of your strain, because I know that it is cumbersome, but I'm not sure how they could have done it easier either. The records that are on our website are, all of our birth, death, and marriage go back to 1867, and they're on the website up to 1907. So I believe at the time that the pictures got taken of all the books, maybe that happened to be when they were 100 years old. If they're less than 100 years old, the birth certificates are not a public record. At 100 years, that becomes a public record. A few years back, we've been going to vital records conferences throughout the time, and they are now saying at state vital records that the record doesn't become a public record until it's 110 years old. I think it's maybe because people are starting to live to 100 and, want to walk in and be able to purchase someone else's birth certificate, we still need to. So at this point, it's kind of sketchy. We are cautious who we hand them out to still, just because of that reason. So if you were looking for a person on our website, and I know that everyone can't see this, so hopefully it just looks a little bit familiar, so when you're at home and you're clicking in and out, maybe it is familiar to you, but if it isn't, please call me and I will help you with it. When you go into the Gratiot MI website and you go into government and you click on county clerk's office, it comes up with a county clerk page. This says some of the jobs that we do. When you find over here, you want to go to genealogy, so you click on the genealogy part, and it's going to come up with this. Here is the cemetery listing. It's the very first thing that they have on it. If you click on the genealogy, then you will get into this page, and it wants you to select whether you want to go into birth book, birth index, death book, death index, marriage book, marriage index. Tonight I just selected birth index because I thought that was as easy, and a lot of people are looking for that, seeing how they're doing genealogy. So when you go in here, what you want to do probably is index first, because you want to find your person and you know what page they're on that way. So when you go into the birth index, this is what you see. So I just selected H because my family name starts with H. When I was born, my name was Hall, so I picked H. And so when you go in, you see birth index for H, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. And you just click in and out of those till you find the page that you're looking for. There's not a great system for it. When I'm looking at the books, it's easy for me because on the side they have index page, but on this, you're just really doing random selection. So let's say you go into the fourth one down, and this is the one you click, and this is what you see. This is the page that is actually that I'm looking at in my office when I'm looking at the index. And so this is what you see. So let's say I was looking for, my grandpa's name is Harold, so I go over here, I see Hall Harold, he is on C 329. So on my scrap paper, I write Harold C 329. As I'm looking down here, I see there's another Harold, and he is on page D 163. So I write that down on my scrap paper. It's just a hit and miss, and you're just randomly selecting things until you find something that looks like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. Sometimes when you're on this page also, you may not know it, but then you see someone else's name that you think you've heard of in your family, so that gives you a rough idea of something else you want to look up. You write that on your scrap paper, and you'll get to that later. So, here we are in the birth books. Then you want to actually go to the books, because the index has given you 2 crumbs of information that you may want to find. So you go into the birth books, and these are the books. There's A, B, C, D1, D2. They go all the way up to H. So I'm thinking I want to go into book C, so I click on book C. And here we are. This is the index that they have scanned the pages into these PDFs. It would make sense because you want C 329, that's where Harold's name was. So you go down and you look for C 329. When you get to 329, they're down here, and you click on that. This is what you see, not the page that you think. This is page 165, he's on page 329. So that's the most difficult part that people are trying to find, thinking that just makes sense. But because these pages, they have to have one line item for this side of the page and for this side of the page, so that's why they don't correspond correctly. So, because we know we're on page 165 and we want to go to 329, instead of selecting the 329, I just doubled and went to like 650 to see. And you just really are just clicking in and out of things until you see something that you are looking for.
What she's saying is like, there's basically two page ones. There's page one, the left side, page one, the right side. And
Correct.
when they made a picture of it, had to make 2 pictures. So
Yeah.
that's why you have to end up doubling.
Okay.
Is because,
Okay.
And they just don't coincide. Sometimes you just click in and out. You
Yeah.
can see when you're at page 63, that isn't what you want, so you just scroll down and you just randomly select, kind of, is how you work. After you're in here for a while, you get a little bit more familiar with it, and you can kind of see how many pages you're really going for. So, here we are. So I went down, and I went to 659, just thinking that that was probably about double. When I got to page 659, this is exactly what we're looking at in the books. This is the left side of the book, this is the right side of the book. So this is 2 different pages in this index right here. So you look down here, and I'm looking for my grandpa's name, and I see Harold Hall right here, born April 14th, 1895. I scan across here. His parents' names are John and Ada. They live in Seville Township, and it tells where they were born, and they're farmers, and so on. I know that's not my grandpa, because I know that's not the right names. So, you go back and think, must be this Harold isn't my grandpa, so let's go see if we can find this one. So, you go back, you just scan yourself back to some of the pages, and you get into the D book. So then once you get into the D book, and you go find page 163, again, the same way you're doing this. When you're on this main page, you can use these arrows to maneuver yourself back and forth. So if you need to go back a couple, you just click, and you can get yourself back into the birth books here. This, when you go into book number D, it looks like the PDF is 1139, which clearly does not coincide with this. but it's just a random selection that you're just trying to click in some of these, and you see what page you're on. If this page is way too soon, then you go down further. If this page is way past where you're looking, then you go up farther. So it's just time consuming, it's a little bit cumbersome, but you can find the information that you're looking for. So when I get to, in Book D, page 163, and I scan down here, and I see, here's Harold Hull, right here. His birthday is March 13, 1901. I believe that is my grandpa. So I scan across here. His parents are Philip and Jenny, and so I know it is my grandpa. And so this is exactly the record that I would be looking for right here. It has the information saying that their residence was Lafayette. It's saying that grandpa was from Michigan and grandma was from Pennsylvania. These are my great-grandparents over here. It's telling, when you look at these pages, this date over here is the date it was registered at the county clerk's office. If you see on these pages, all of these records were registered the same day, June 5th, 1902. These are all different dates over here, earlier than this, but not in any specific order. As the birth was recorded, this one was recorded, then the next one, this one was recorded. This one was born in April, March, July, August, February. It's just randomly selecting the people. So that index is really, really important so that you can find what page your person is on.
So did do you think the doctor or midwife or somebody just brought those all in at one time and recorded them, or?
I'm wondering, or it could be a possibility, because they have all of the New Havens listed together, then all of the Lafayette's, I'm wondering if it had something to do with the township maybe, was where they got the recordings. I'm not exactly sure. I see that in some of the books, there's not a lot of recordings in the winter, but they have a whole lot that start in the springtime. So I'm not sure if maybe the courthouse didn't accept the filings at that time, maybe they weren't open then. I'm not sure how the heating worked at that time. The fireplaces on the third floor, you can clearly tell, probably didn't heat the building all that well. Even there are days now where some days it's 80 degrees in there and the next day it might be 30, so you never know. The air conditioning and the heating is real sketchy in there, but you just wear a sweater and it's still a beautiful building, so I'll do it any day of the week. I love it, that it's beautiful. So, one of the things also that I noticed when I was looking through here is some of these people have corrections on their name. Sometimes they just, apparently they spelled my grandpa's name with 2 R's, and someone came back and decided that it was corrected, so they just corrected it like this. On some of the records that we have, it indicates that the health department had something to do with the corrections. This person right here was born in December of 1896. And it looks like Department of Health sent in a correction to the county clerk's office in 1958. So it could be a possibility that someone who realized their parent or grandparent had the wrong information on their record, they sent it into the health department and then they made some determination to correct it. What they did was they added the father's middle name, and the mother, they added her maiden name. In this year of this recordings, they have the parents listed both with the same last name. In some of our later books, they do have the mother's maiden name, which is extremely helpful when you're really doing genealogy. That's more helpful. So this information for some people isn't as helpful as they wish, but at least they can confirm that this person here, the date of birth and the parents where they live. Sometimes the occupations are quite interesting. A lot of them are farmers, but there was a lot of other information on there where people, were doctors or whatever too. So that's kind of nice to find out your grandparent, what they did for a living that got you here. So, when we get back to the index, as you're looking at the index, all of these people have the lines that they originally recorded where they are in the books. And then in between, they added other names and they have 1940D. Those are delayed births. We do have a lot of delayed births. It looks like they began in 1940 and they do go for years after that. I believe that when people were born in the early 1900s, that they didn't really need a birth certificate, and so they didn't need to be recorded at the county clerk's office. When people were out on the farm, they had a new baby, they didn't hop in the buggy and run into town to let the county clerk know that. So a lot of those people never did have a birth certificate. And maybe in 1940, apparently something changed and people did decide they needed that.
They wanted to sign up for the draft.
Okay, that could be it. I had a couple of thoughts, maybe it had something to do with Social Security, I don't know that either.
Yeah.
So I never found really a good answer for it, but I'm guessing that 1940 was quite crucial for that. And so we have a lot of delayed births. The record itself is, if a child was born in 1901 and recorded in 1902, 110 years later, that record becomes a public record. But if a person was born in 1896 and recorded in 1940, that record is not 110 years old until 2050. So those records are still not a public record. My grandma was born in 1906. Her birth is recorded in 1962. And so her record, she's been gone since 1990, and her record is not going to be a public record for quite some time. But at the time, they had all different reasons to record those births. They have, some of them say an affidavit signed by a family member or a friend. Some of them say based on the information from the family Bible. They have all different reasoning why the county could go ahead and record it now. Some of them, when I look in the books, it seems that they're signed by a probate judge, so there must have been some type of process that you had to go through the probate office to get those recorded, because they were delayed. In our office, we do the recording of the new births, and now in the last year, during 2020, the State Vital Records decided it was a great idea to start a whole new program. When all of us were working half the time and double the work. But they have a system now that at the hospital, they type the information in and it comes to me through a portal. So I can bring up the birth certificates and I get them instantly as soon as they're finished at the hospital. We can verify them at our office, print them up, and actually scan them into our system. Prior to this, we used to get them through the mail, so that delayed it a little bit. So as the system is going on, it is getting a little bit better and a little bit better. The way we do it right now, it does seem like it's quite efficient, and I really, can do them in no time flat. We scan them into a system, an indexing system that we have, and we have them in our system. So from 1934 forward, if someone comes in to get their birth certificate, we can usually print that up in just a few minutes. There was a, yes?
What is your indexing system called?
The indexing system that we use on our computer, it's called Decketo. It's a system, Deketo. And it's a system that we can scan the documents right in there. It's very easy for us to find them very quickly. And while people are filling out the form for the application, usually we can print them up by the time that they're done with that.
So home births, that doesn't, go through a hospital, do the parents just come in and register their baby, or?
Well, that happened up until this new Vera system that we have now, the vital records that we have now. The parents came in, and there's a whole list of things that they were supposed to bring. They're supposed to call me and make an appointment, and I was actually issuing a birth certificate to a human being that I didn't see born. And so that, there was quite a few papers that they had to bring in for that. Both parents had to come in, they brought in the child, they brought in each of their own birth certificates, their marriage certificate. They had to have information from a midwife or a witness that was actually on scene at the time that the baby was born. And I did create the birth certificates. And Carol Rubin was our county clerk at the time, and she said, as long as we're following the criteria and you feel comfortable doing that, because I still need to sleep at night. So we did do those for a long time. This new Vera system that we have is fantastic. because now the midwife is responsible for putting it into the system. And when it comes up on my screen, they either say that the child was born at the Elma Hospital or whatever the address is that the child was born. So that took a lot of pressure off of me. It's a very nice new feature that we have. The midwife does have all the information, they still have the same forms that we had when we were doing the home birth also. So it tells the mother's temperature at the time it was born. It has a lot of information that's not really on a birth certificate, but it does need to go into the system. Because the records that happen in the state vital record system, also they, I believe, get crossed into like the vaccine records, and the health department has something to do with it, and there's a whole lot of records that meet up with each other down there. So it's kind of nice, because then when you're not sure if your child has had all their vaccines or whatever, you can contact the health department and they've gotten the correct information also. Yeah. The home births, I'm very happy that I'm not responsible for home birth
Yeah.
anymore, because that was kind of a lot. So.
Renee, you mentioned on the delayed documents, the delayed birth certificates, the record had to be 110. Can there be an exception if that person has passed away and they can bring in a death certificate?
Mhm. If, let's say you were looking for your grandparents, or your parents even, and the record is not 110 years old. If you were trying to get that record, I would still need your ID, I would need your birth certificate with your parents' names on it, and then if it goes back farther, their parents' birth certificate also. I need to see how the trail goes. And death certificates for all the people that are involved in that. Because I just want to make sure that people aren't trying to scam their grandparents, things like that. So, and sometimes people are just trying to help their parents get their birth certificate so that they can get them extra assistance of some type. So hopefully, all of the papers, because we have it written on a criteria, as long as I'm covering all of that, I could feel that it's okay to do that. Yep, those are a possibility to get. Often I can talk people out of trying to get a birth certificate though, because mostly a death certificate has more information on it. At the time a child is born, they haven't done anything yet. Their parents' names on there, their date of birth, and that's pretty much it. By the time they died, it tells what their occupation is, if they've been married, it has a bunch of other information. So a lot of the time I try to encourage people to get death certificates because at least it has a little bit more history on there. Sometimes people, that is exactly what they're looking for, because on a death certificate it says the cause of death also. If you had a heart issue in your family and you were trying to get death certificates from your family and you see there's a whole lot of people who had a whole heart thing, you might want to hike yourself into the doctor and figure out if you have a heart thing too. So sometimes that is a little bit more beneficial for people to use their death certificates. Sometimes the marriage certificates, people do come in and get that because it has both sets of parents on those, so sometimes that is helpful too. I believe at one point the genealogy library typed up a beautiful bride's book for us. And so instead of looking in these big indexes like this, we can go to a flip page, it's just a notebook page, and it has all of the bride's names and the date, their index page and book that they're in. So we can go to those very easily. Looking for divorces, that's a whole lot more, because those are not indexed. They're in the front of each book, and so you just have to go book to book. So when people are looking for their divorce papers from 1970, I need a really good date, because otherwise I'm just going book to book to book. Because our, yes?
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
On your birth records and your death records, do you have the actual, what is it, an 8x7 card rather than that index type thing?
From 1934 forward, we do. Prior to that, we have the books that look just like this. And so if someone comes in to get a birth certificate on one of these older ones, we actually type them up.
Oh, okay.
But we can type them in the system that we have. If we type them up, we can print them off that system. And they look similar to the ones that people come in to get today. There was a time during, I want to say in the 90s, where someone determined it was a good idea to put the parents' social security numbers on the child's birth certificate. And those we can't issue anymore. So we have to use the system that we have, our Decadal system, to print those up. We just verify that everything is typed into the index correctly, and then we can print them off of the index system. They look a little bit different. Sometimes people are coming in to get 2 or 3 different children and all of them look different. Sometimes it's because they actually have changed the form throughout the time, but sometimes it's just because they have the basic information off of our index. It still has all of the information. It has the child's date of birth, time of birth, the parents' names, and where the parents were born, the state that the parents were born. And so all of those are in the system also. There was also a time from 1933 to 1978 that if a child was born to an unwed mother, that record went straight to the state and the county doesn't have that recorded at all. Apparently, that was a scandal. Hopefully, that's not the way it is now, because most of our babies that are born, a lot of the parents are not married now, and normal thing. They still, probably a lot of them are still a couple together, and some of them are not. But at least all the records still do go to us.
What years was that for the?
From 1933 to 1978.
Wow.
With this new system that we recently got, we also got into the birth registry system. And the state has all of the births in the state on that system. So we can click in, we can put a name into it, and we can see where the child was born. If it's truly was in Gratiot County and it was one of the unwed mothers that we don't have it recorded yet, or if it was in a different county. If a person's standing at our counter and they fill out the application and they sign it, we verify their ID, we can look in the system and tell them, oh, you were born in Carson City, so yours is in Montcalm County, and so we send them out to Stanton to get that. Because we have that system, that is also a very nice new feature that we have, so that we can direct people to the correct place. People come in every day and they swear up and down they were born in Alma, and I look on the system and I can clearly see they weren't. But it's just, I guess it's just that for years, I didn't live here either. I was born in Carson City. People asked me where I was born and I put Gratiot County on all my forms because I was just a kid when I left and I didn't know, I guess. So I can see where people get mixed up and they really aren't sure about that. Yes, Cecilia?
Children that are given up at birth, because I have a niece that was, adopted into our family.
Okay.
So does it have the birth mother's name and the adoptive parents' names?
What happens is, if a child is born in Gratiot County and then they're adopted by different parents, or their name is changed at any point through the probate office, people do that through the probate office wherever they live. So the child could be born here, but say the people live in a different county, they would file their adoption papers at the county they live. But when the papers go through, they are responsible, either the probate office or the parents of the child are responsible to file those papers with state vital records. As soon as that happens and it goes to the change unit at state vital records, they change the record to the new parents' names, and they send a new record back to the county that was originally registered in. So if we have a baby here and the name is changed and the parents are changed, we get a new record, we scan it into our system, we destroy the old record, we only have one record, hopefully the newest record. And so when the children grow up, a lot of the time they come in, they tell us the whole story, I was adopted, da, da, da. And I say, you don't have to tell people that, because nobody needs to know that's not your real parents. Because that is the parents that usually raise them. And so sometimes the children are trying to find out who their other parents were prior. Sometimes they just aren't exactly sure what to put on their forms. I think there's just some confusion.
So does that happen with children who are removed, like when they're maybe 8 or 9, the same thing, and they're adopted out?
Yep, no matter what age,
No
if
matter
you were
what age.
adopted at this age, even to a different, or changed your name or whatever it is,
Okay.
the change unit still changes the birth record to the original record.
Interesting.
So sometimes, as time has gone on, people had their original birth record that had their birth parents on it, and they had their adoption papers with them, and that was good enough. They could go to DMV and they could get a driver's license and it had their new name on it and so on, but they never actually changed the birth record. And so now, with this Real ID, we had a whole lot of new things that came up over the last couple of years, and people had a lot of trouble trying to get a driver's license because the birth certificate they have and the driver's license they have don't match the same thing. So they're having a lot of trouble trying to figure out what to do now to backtrack that. So they can go into a probate office with the proper ID and get their papers from the adoption or the name change or whatever it is, and they can now send them into the change unit and they can get their birth record updated for that.
So if a child was born to Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they got adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Smith. When they go look up their birth record, if it's been done correctly, it'll show Mr. and Mrs. Smith as the birth parents?
That's correct.
But there's no way to trace them back to Mr.
Wow,
and
that's
Mrs.
kinda-
Jones.
That's kind of,
There's no way with us.
Oh, okay.
If they
They'd have to
go
go
through
through
state vital
probate.
records, if,
That's what I
yeah,
was gonna
if they have some, if they go to probate and they can find the adoption papers, and then they can go to state vital records. State vital records probably does have the original document also, but that's just not available. It's a sealed record.
Yep.
So it's not available for them. If the child themselves is the one, they're the one who's trying to find that record, they probably have some hoops to jump through to get that. It probably is a possibility that some of them can get unsealed, and probably some of them can't. So it isn't something that I've ever personally dealt with, but I see people all the time, and I can see their paperwork, and I can get them to the correct office so that they can get the help that they need, so they can try to go where they want.
Interesting.
Did you have a question, Mary?
No, that was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, on our computer system now, even the records that were sealed before because the child was born to an unwed mother, those records can now be released back to us because we have this centralized birth system that we are now a part of. So if I go onto the system and I see the child's name and I see it says Gratiot County, but I look in my index and I don't have it, I can call down to State Vital Records, they can release that document, and in 5 minutes I can print that in my office. So the new system is really, really nice, so that we have a lot more availability. It saves people driving to Lansing, because in the past, that's exactly what we had to do. You're gonna have to deal with State Vital Records. Well, I don't know if you've ever walked into our office, but you get your birth certificate, you pay your money, and I get you out of there in 5 minutes if I can possibly do it. When you're dealing with State Vital Records, that is kind of big. And so I tell people all the time, I'm not gonna say anything bad about them, they're just swamped. They have 83 counties, I have 1. So it takes a long time to get your record, and it's a lot of paperwork to do it. And if you drive down there, I think you sit and wait a long time. I'm not even sure if they're reopened at this time. They've been there the whole time, because when I call them, I talk to them all the time. But I'm not sure that they were actually open where they were letting people into the building down there. Because the state was one of the things that we're trying to have people work from home, so they had to have staffs and things like that.
So that period that 33 through 78, they could, even though you don't house those documents, those birth certificates, you still can get access to them?
Yep, I can call down, they release it back to me, I print it out of my system, I index it into my index and scan it into my system, and now it is a part of our records. And it does become a county record at that time. So a lot of the people hopefully still have them from during that time, but this has been a very, very nice feature for us now, because
People
it's saving.
decided that's okay, it's not moral.
Apparently. I think that it just got to a point where they thought, this is just way too much, why don't we release them back now? So for us to sign up for the centralized birth system was a great plan for us. Makes my job a whole lot easier, and I don't have to tell people, and I'm sorry, our birth records are $26 and theirs are $34. And if you wanna walk in there and get it handed to you, you pay immediate fee for that too, and there's another $15, another $12, and it gets kind of expensive. But people do it all the time, because all of a sudden they're getting married and they need that record, and so they'll do whatever they need to get the record that meets their deadline so that they can apply for their marriage license. Does anyone else have any questions regarding that? Or anything else that I do?
That was great.
Amazing. It's an awesome job. I can't tell you how much I love it. I talk to people all day long, all over the country, all over the world. I love it.
Does Gratiot County talk to Montcalm County?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Computer-wise, I mean,
I'm sorry?
computer-wise?
Not computerized. I can't get into their records, but I pick up the phone and call Nan and say, hey, you got this? And she says, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just easier than sending the person all the way over there. I would rather call and make sure that they have it before the person drives all the way over there and finds out they were really bored in Kent County, and then they're driving somewhere else and somewhere else.
But they may have a whole different indexing system than Gratiot County then.
That's correct. The Decado system that we have, all of the counties in the state don't have the same system. A lot of them have a whole bunch of different systems. And the system that we have, we do have a really nice backup for that. They're in Traverse City. And I just picture it's a bunch of guys sitting around in their living rooms. I don't even know if they have an office. But they're all nice and they're all real computerized, and they'll walk you through whatever you need, and we've never had any trouble with it. So the system that we have is really, really nice.
If you want to go into the probate records, how are those organized? By chronologically, or?
I'm not sure how probate works, because probate is a whole department of their own.
What do you do with the courts? You said you.
We do all family and felony court.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and so if all of the cases that always start out in district court, if it is determined that it is a felony through the prosecutor and the lawyers and whoever, because it's on a point system depending on how bad you committed whatever crime, then they get kicked up to our court. So ours are the felony court, and so we do deal with that.
How do you get into the court records from court cases previously?
That is also on our website. You go into the clerk functions, and then you go into court cases, and it says you're now leaving the site. Are you okay with that? And you click somewhere, and you put in a person's name, and it'll bring up the court cases that are public records for them.
Wow.
So if you have a divorce, or you have a child custody, or child support, or a felony record, or anything that fits into our criteria, those are all in there. That gives you the case number. It might give you, I don't go in there a lot because I don't need to, I have the real system. But a lot of the time when people call, if they have the case number, that's helpful for us, because then we know we have the right case. But we can get records out of the felony records, most of them are a public record also, and anybody can get those.
What would that be or what would not be a public record?
Not be a public record. If you commit a felony and you're, say, 17 years old, and you ask the judge to seal that record, they can make that a suppressed case so that nobody else can see it. We can see it because the people still owe us felony fines, so we're gonna need their money on those. But if anybody else was looking at our website, it would show that there was no case for that person.
How far back do those records go?
Our computer system goes back to 1995,
Oh,
and
okay.
prior to that, we have to go through books and look at them like this. And there's pages and pages and pages. Our records that are before 1940, I believe, went to archives, so those are at the state. And people now are trying to get them.
So you have records from the 1940s then?
We have some of the records, if I had to guess, I know one of the books starts in 1948, so I'm not exactly sure.
But these would be felonies we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
As for like divorces, civil cases, we have those back to, I wanna say 1963. And so a lot of time people come in and they do need their divorce papers now, and so we can look back through those books. We don't have the actual files on those anymore because we just don't have the room for them. We have a vault, and we have a vault down in the basement at the courthouse, but a lot of our records we store off-site, so we can fax a note down, and they can either send us through the fax machine just the document we want, or if we need the whole file. A lot of people now, and always, are trying to get their case set aside. They did something stupid and stole someone's vehicle when they were 17 years old, and their case is still showing up as a felony, and they decided years later that they don't want that on the record. And so they can do a set-aside on that so that the case does become non-public. And so those, we actually have to call down to the file company and see if they'll send us the actual file, because the judge needs to see the real papers on those, the originals. Yes, ma'am?
You said that some of them have already gone to the state.
Mhm.
Is there a progression? I mean, every 5 years or something, are you sending more and more down to the state and it will no longer be available?
Not since I've been there. I've been there for 8.5 years, and we haven't sent any down to archives since then. I'm guessing, I don't know, again, in 1940 what happened, but the papers that, the cases that were prior to 1940, we sent to state archives. I'm guessing there was something that came out that said, you know, that they would be happy to store them for us, so.
So Renee, you're talking about, are we talking about circuit court, or are you just talking about felony records when you say that? As far as what was sent? When I'm down there, I'm seeing circuit court to 1940, then it stops
Okay.
at state archives, and so I'm wondering what's happened between 1940 and
The
whatever
ones
you
that we
got.
don't have, you mean?
Yeah.
We probably have the register of action in the case, I'm not exactly sure, to tell you the truth. My job is vital records, and I know just enough about the court cases that I can help people at the counter, and so I do try to. The easiest thing for me to get the information from them, I go into the back room, I look for the books that fit the year that they're looking for. I'm sorry, I'm just saying off the top of my head, I
Right,
know that we
right.
have the felonies from 1948, and there's a book that has 1970 to 80 or something like that. But they just have the register of action, and those we have to request.
So say they're not felonies.
Just a civil.
And they're in civil court, and they're in circuit court. Say I'm looking for violations of rationing laws in the 1940s in Gratiot. Is that something your department would hold? Is that somebody else in the courthouse we would go see about that, or?
I'm not sure what that case would be. Rationing, would it,
I mean, it would be circuit court violation is what it would be.
okay.
Appearing before the judge for, or say for public drunkenness, or,
That would probably be, public drunkenness would probably be a felony, I would assume. I'm not exactly sure. It depends on how drunk you were and where you were doing it. Like I said, there are no criteria, and this point system tells whether it's a felony or if you get kicked back down to a misdemeanor. If you have a good lawyer and you are on the border, they can get you kicked back down to a misdemeanor, and sometimes that is a big benefit.
I think there's something here about what happened after 1940 to our circuit court records. And like you're saying, if they were expunged, if they were cleared, there must have been an awful lot of them that happened to, because,
So we may be missing a big gap, is what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Which we could be. And I'm not exactly sure. I will go to the basement and dig for you. If you tell me
I
what
got
you
a
want, I'll look.
I should have brought a picture for you, a picture in the Herald where they just got stacks of them.
Okay,
This was in like 1967, they just got them stacked, but they were getting ready to go to microfilm.
okay.
So I'm guessing they went to microfilm somewhere, maybe, and then the old ones got put aside, pitched out, whatever they do with those, I don't know, but.
Well, when I've gone to some of the meetings, we do have county clerk meetings, and sometimes I have gone to them. And they have some different rulings too, the scale state court administrator. They have how far back you have to keep your records, and if they're over 25 years old, it's okay to destroy them, things like that. For us, it's nothing we've ever done, as far as I know. I don't think we would ever destroy it. I know Carol Vernon pretty good, and I can't imagine that she would have ever let that happen.
Yeah.
So it could be a possibility that we do have the records. It could be that the books are in the basement, because it isn't something that we need to look up all the time. So we may have them. I'm not
You
exactly
just
sure.
need a number, you need a circuit court record number is what you need to get started.
If you
if
give
it's a
me
felony.
whatever information you can give me, I'll try to find whatever you
Okay.
can find. So you email me, and I'll be glad to look for it.
Okay.
So it won't be my highest priority, though.
No,
just so
no.
you know. Just like when
Not as
people
busy as you are, no, I don't
When
think
people
so.
are doing genealogy, it's
Yeah.
like, I will see if I can get to that, but I
Yeah.
know it's gonna be a while, because I know what my schedule looks like, and when I'm busy and when I'm not. So I'll be happy to look.
So if we wanna come in and look something up, Tuesday and Wednesday are the best days?
I can't even say when the best days are.
Okay.
We had, a couple of weeks ago, we have a skeleton crew right now, because one of our girls decided to have a baby. I don't know who authorized that, but I can tell you it wasn't me. So, and we knew, for months that she was having a baby, and when she was leaving, she was scheduled for her timeout, so we already knew that. And so we are a little bit short right now. We also, because all of us who work there still deserve to get a vacation, we have people on vacation. So the last 3 days, we've only had 2 people in there, and half the time Teresa was up in court, so there I sit. So I'll be happy to help people whenever I can, and I write down their information, I'll be glad to call you back. I love to do email. That is the easiest thing for me, because people shoot me the information, I put it right there so that I know I can get to it. As for doing the searching and things like that, truly we will try to help. So if you come in and it's not a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I will pull those books right out of that drawer. I got no problem with that. We had Monday and Tuesday, Teresa and I couldn't keep ahead of it. There was people coming in, I filled out 6 marriage affidavits that day. Just, people are now being able to get back out, having a party, bless you. They're trying to have a party, they're trying to get married, so we're getting a real rush on the marriages. Usually, marriage season starts in May. It's kind of dwindling down by now, but that's not the case. In the springtime, we have a huge influx on PPOs. I don't know why, I guess because people are out and they're just irritating the neighbors. I don't know. We have gaps of time where things are really, really busy and then things slow down. Last week, on Thursday and Friday, it slowed right down. Bless you. It slowed right down, and we had time that we could catch up all of our baskets. So we just never know when it's gonna be busy, but if you come in, I'll be happy to pull the books up for you.
It'll be cold weather before I get it.
That'll be fun. And who knows what's gonna happen by then. Last year was a very good indicator on that one day we were at work and the next week, they sent us home, so I have no idea. So I tell people, don't wait to do what you wanna do, because who knows if you're gonna be able to do that next week, so.
What kind of veterans records do you get, and why Why do you record those?
It's the DD 214, it's their release from the military. And when they get released from the military, they do get the information apparently from their commander or whatever, that when they get back home to register their DD 214 with the county clerk. When they do that, that becomes a permanent record of the county. As people go on with their lives, a lot of the time, they move, they may have a fire, they may have a lot of things. They've lost that DD 214. That paper is priceless. Those people can get benefits from that, they can get a discount on a home loan, they truly have some value. And so for them, moving, they have it all in storage, it's much easier for them to come in, show their ID, and we can get it for them much quicker than they can call Washington DC or wherever you call to get that. And so when they make it a permanent record of the county, it's very nice for them and for us, and we have all the records. Those are also not a public record. But DD 214 has a lot of information on it. They're fascinating. They have a lot of skills. It has the things that they've done in the military. It's awesome. But only the person who's listed on that can get those.
And what year did that, has that always been a factor, or?
I believe for a long time. In our vault, we have books that say, instead of saying DD 214, they say soldiers and sailors records. And so they're very, very old. So those go back a long way. But those, hopefully, nobody's looking at a lot of those because the person has passed and their family probably is not, they would have to have plenty of the paperwork, like a birth certificate, to prove who they are and their parents' names and their parents' names and all the birth certificates and all the death certificates, so that we know that we're not just releasing those to someone who wants to see what's going on.
I have a question on a child that's born outside the U.S.
Mhm.
What's the paper trail down to the county level?
When a
Is it
child,
through immigration or adoption? We have a granddaughter that's born outside the U.S.
okay, and so when the child was adopted here in the United States, the parents can register the record in the county here. They do it through the probate office.
Okay.
And then it becomes a record, I'm assuming that it goes straight to the state, and then it goes into state vital records. That may be something that would be in our birth register system. I'm not sure, because I've never had to bring one of those back up.
Okay.
Usually when people do that, they're very careful to make sure that they get a couple copies from the state, and then they hold right on to that, because a lot of the time when they adopt those children, then they can get extra benefits also. So they want to make sure that they have that birth certificate in.
So say if somebody adopts from Russia, when they change the birth information, it'll show that that child was born in Gratiot?
I don't think it says it's born in Gratiot. I think it's recorded in Gratiot. I believe it still says that the child was born in the place that they were really born. But like I said, I don't see a lot of those, so I don't know that. We did have a lady who came in and wanted to register her birth certificate of her child, and her adopted child. And I didn't even know how to do it. I called down to the state. So when I don't know how to do it, I will call somebody to try to find out what to do.
Are these records that you have online, are they free?
The records that are, when you look these up, you can check this, but if you actually want it typed up, you have to come in and pay the $26 for the record.
Because I know Montcalm County, you know, they make you pay about everything
Yep, because we still need our lights on too.
there. That's very generous, that Gratiot County does this though.
The reason I think that these got online, and Carol was working on it because I believe somebody came in and took pictures of our books, and I'm not exactly sure if they were authorized to do that at the time, because you can't take pictures in our office, because a lot of people think that they can do that out of their case files or something, they can just take the pictures of them, but they can't, they really have to pay for the pages. And so I think that because these got out on the internet anyway, Carol decided it was easier for it to be on our website, so that at least they were attached to the correct place, and knowing that they were old, and that the people could look for them.
We have those records from the courthouse on CDs here. And when the courthouse gave them to us, they made it so that we could not print them. And you could not print them at the courthouse either. It was strictly, the courthouse would make their own record, just like what we do, a form, and it's filled in. But at that time, they were not allowing them to be printed.
But you could just view it, you mean?
Well, we can view it, and we have our
Okay.
own form that have, you know, we've done the same thing, but I think it goes up to 1934 or 35,
Okay,
so,
but see, when you are looking at the pages, like when you're over here, and you're looking at these pages, the date that they're recorded, they're really not a public record, even in 1934. So if you're releasing those documents and the people can see a record from 1934, that's probably not good, because they're not a public record yet. And the people born in 1934 are probably still alive, some of them, I would assume. So you don't want to give a birth record to some stranger, because that's the identity theft.
these were the records that the courthouse gave us that were authorized for whatever year, however many years it was legal at the time.
Okay.
So,
The county clerk would probably decided that at the time, and then I'm guessing, whoever
Right.
the county clerk was.
I think we got that probably, what, 10, 12 years ago? Not
Okay.
that long
I
ago.
don't know.
I think it was 10 or 12 years ago that we got these CDs.
Okay.
And somebody had come in and had been authorized through the court, or the courthouse, to copy these, and that's the same records you've got on your online.
Okay.
So,
Okey dokey. Not exactly sure what happened before I worked there. I tried to learn everything I could since I started there.
Oh, you learned a lot, right?
Thank you. I have been there for a long, long time, so I feel like I've been there for a long, long time. Does anybody else have any questions?
Have you always worked in that office, or did you start somewhere else? In the
Um,
courthouse?
In the courthouse, that is the first office I worked at in the courthouse. Prior to working at the courthouse, I started there in March of 2013, and prior to that, I worked 7 years at 911 dispatch. So I did work for the county, just didn't work in that beautiful building.
it is beautiful.
It is good.
So your system, your indexing system, you go through on all of these pages and index them so that so it can be pulled up?
We do not.
Or you
If they're on these old pages like this, the only time we put them onto our Ducato system so that we can print is if somebody requests them. Because it would take us forever and a day. They go back to 1867, and that would take us forever and a day. Most of them are never gonna get requested, and so it would use a lot of space on our hard drive.
So once somebody requests it though, it is on your system?
And so sometimes when you go in and you're looking for somebody, if somebody else has requested it, it's already typed up and we can just print it in 2 minutes and it's nothing to it. So, we always hope for that, because these books, they're kind of heavy when we're dragging them out of the back room and, back and forth. We don't have a lot of desk space, but typing them up, we'll be happy to do it for you.
And most of the time, people are probably just looking for dates and names, aren't they?
I hope so. I think
I would
when I
think
was doing my
so.
genealogy, I got a system that worked for me. Probably nobody else can even read it, but
Yeah.
I went in and besides just finding, how people usually do genealogy is they do it like a family tree, like a bracket system. They have their name, then their parents' names, then their parents' names, and their parents' names. What I decided when I did mine was, I wanted my grandparents' siblings. I wanted to see how many children they had in their family. I was surprised to see how many they had, because I didn't think it was that long ago, but a lot of them had, came from farm families. Apparently, when you have farm families, the more kids you have, the more help you have. It's a good idea. So, all the time I was growing up, I did know my dad's aunts, my grandpa and grandma's sisters and brothers. I knew them because we had family reunions. And so for me, once I started doing this, and then I tried to go back to their generation, and then I tried to go forward with their children too, so that we would know who our cousins and all of that. It does get very confusing if you don't have a good system for it. I use notebook papers and a 3-ring binder so I could put pages in between so that I could add people on all the time. I try to keep up on people when they get married and when they die in our family. Seems to be pretty frequent now. I guess it's just the age I'm at that we're losing a lot of people, but it seems to be the case. So I just try to keep up on it, and I see something on Facebook where somebody had a baby and I go in there and write on my book. I do think that social media is kind of overdone, but for that kind of thing, I think it's awesome. And that's what it was really meant to be, I believe. So I hope that people put things on there like that, and so when I see my cousins having babies, I'm happy to write them into my book. Is there anything else I could answer for anybody?
Just on the court cases?
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Civil cases, you said go back to 1963. Are those on the website, or is just the vital, or
Just the 95 forward, I believe, would be on our website.
The felony.
And family also.
Oh,
If you were,
felony and-
if you had a divorce in 1996, you would be listed on that. You go onto our website and you go into court cases, and when it takes you over, and if you put in your name at the time the case started, because a lot of time people have gotten remarried and they want us to look for that name, but the case has never changed. Once my case started in 1996, that case is always named that, no matter what your name changes to. So those cases are all on there, so you can look up the divorce from back then. A lot of the time, the cases that are on there, you can read through and see if, and I'm sorry, I don't really know exactly what it says, because like I said, I don't use that system. A lot of time people do call us and they want their divorce, but they do have their case number already, because they've looked up on there, which is helpful to us, but if it's on my system, it's just as easy to look up their name too, because they come up real quickly and I can tell, I can get their judgment of divorce easy now.
If somebody's looking for a divorce, say from 1910, because it used to be in the newspapers, that up until the 1990s, I think it was listed in the newspapers for divorces. But say 1910, and it says that so-and-so and so-and-so got a divorce. Do they come down to you to get the actual divorce records?
I hope not, because I don't think we have them. I think those are the ones that are sent to archives that are prior to 1940.
Okay.
I believe so.
And how do you get hold of archives?
I have the number in my office. If you need me, you can call me.
Okay.
Or you can Google state archives, and I'm guessing it'll come up. I think you can go there too. I've never actually
Yeah.
been there, and I think it's probably fascinating, but you can go there and there's just rows and rows of boxes and boxes in
You
it.
have to request them, yeah. I mean, right now they're on appointment schedule only on
Okay.
Saturdays and so days of the week. But yeah, before COVID, I mean, you could go 6 days a week down there to, usually half a day, usually afternoons on weekdays, and Saturdays 10 till 4.
Okay.
So,
And do you just like stare at the boxes?
oh,
Like,
there's
that
the
must be
stuff. The stuff on
overwhelming.
Gratiot County is amazing. How much they've got. Somebody had the foresight to send it down there. Everything
Yeah.
from naturalization to circuit court cases from 1890 to 1940, and yeah.
But you
And
don't,
I'm not sure what rules got sent down there, but they didn't get sent in 1940. I'm guessing they
Yeah.
got sent
Some of
like in
them.
the 80s or 90s maybe.
They can't pinpoint exactly when that donation was made, but
Okay.
yeah.
you don't actually go in and see these boxes. They
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you tell them what you want, you write it out, and then they go get it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They bring the whole box out and
Yeah,
then you just.
they bring a card out to you, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's neat.
Yeah.
I have seen pictures of it, but I just have never been down there, so. I've never actually been to our state vital records either, but I would love to see that too. And I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, if I popped over there on my day off, would you let me in? And they're like, oh, yeah. Except I just have never down there to do it, you know? But I think it's probably pretty fascinating. I'm guessing that they are overwhelmed, but they're just like me. I call them and say, do you have a record? And they say, hold on, and they go in the vault and dig through something and find it, so. Apparently, they're as familiar with their 83 counties as I am with my one, I'm hoping, so.
Well, then, if you don't have any other questions, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's give them the tape, this one.